What is the defense industry in Canada, and why is there a strategy on it? Canada's defense industry is really a collection of businesses, organizations, not for profits, even academia that partake in designing, manufacturing, and maintaining goods and services needed for the country's armed forces and our broader security objectives. It's framed as a national defense industrial base that really supplies equipment all the way from aircraft, naval vessels, weapons, electronics, even cyber solutions, cybersecurity technology. And it's about also our supply chain and depth and innovation capacity essential for Canada's security, sovereignty, and prosperity. And it's really picking up, especially in the north and in the Arctic. And you might even hear that the industry is sort of organized around air, land, maritime. And what Canada's strategy around the build, partner, buy framework is looking to do is re-engage with industry, small, medium-sized business, large enterprises, to enhance Canada's capacity to, build and develop defense-related services and equipment. And that's why I'm out here west of Edmonton, facing north. And it's only a few hour flight to the Arctic. A 24-hour drive into Yellowknife, where Edmonton is positioning itself as a defense hub. So if you've heard about the Edmonton Regional Defence Alliance, this is a group of academic institutions, not-for-profits from around the Edmonton area that are wanting to position Edmonton as a defense hub because we've got the Edmonton International Airport. We're just, a day or two away from the Arctic. Edmonton has a massive industrial complex around it with Nisku. We've got, again, like the airport. There's a lot of land. And there's a lot of innovation going on in Edmonton around technology, logistics. There's a great company based out of Edmonton that creates like circuit boards. They've been doing it for 30 years. They do amazing work. And, I think it's tough, right? Because we've got $81.5 billion allocated to this. And right now, there's like a $300 million grant that small to medium businesses can apply for, along with, First Nations, other not-for-profits, that is looking to grow capacity in defense. So that's why I'm out here, because, you take like a really quick look just that way. That's the north. That's Canada's Arctic. And if we're going to position Canada in a better way globally within the defense industry, there's a big push to make it happen in Alberta and, out of Edmonton. But my concern with all of this is we still need to take on a very systemic, holistic view, because I think Edmonton sucking up and the region sucking up all of the money, the resources, sort of the communications, owning that narrative, I don't think that's going to be healthy for the communities within the ripple effect of that. So, communities like High Level, communities like Grand Prairie, Slave Lake, even Hinton and Edson to the west, and even Lloydminster to the east, and Red Deer, Calgary. If we're really looking to, create a viable economic position for Alberta outside of just the oil and gas sector, if industrial defense is a viable sector for us because of our situation to the north, then I kind of wonder what does the Alberta government have to play in that, because I've not seen them at the table in this conversation, at least in the networking events and the people that I've spoken to. And how is Alberta and the Edmonton region going to partner with other potential logistic hubs? Because again, my worry is that if the Edmonton region is going to suck up all of the money, there's a big push. I'll explain too what, there's a big push for dual use technology. So if you don't know what dual use technology is, it's really anything that is being used, for something today, today, that could be also used for defense. So for example, maybe you have a pressure testing company and you pressure test equipment and valves and containers. Well, could that same process be used to pressure test a submarine? So maybe you haven't been in that market before, but is there potential for you to do that or get some funding and make some quick adjustments? There's also potential, for technology. So if you've got a technology that's working in the financial industry or in another type of industry, could it work within the defense complex? Because what's really going to happen is we're going to see up in the Arctic and the North is, I think, what they're forecasting or saying is, military bases that are really the equivalent of a small city. So even waste management, if you're involved in any of the logistics within waste management, think about additional military bases in the north and what they would need for waste management. And, that's a dual use. So, I'd like to see, the Edmonton Regional, Alliance kind of start talking to how they're going to branch out to other similar hubs or alliances. And if there isn't any, then, what parts of Canada, what parts of Western Canada, in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, who can sort of stand that up in their region to link in? Because we have to think about this holistically in a networked way. So, that's one thing I'm thinking of and wondering about. The other part too is, how is this $81.5 billion that's being funneled to defense going to impact other programs and services? Because this money's got to come from somewhere. And over time, it'll be interesting to see, what the federal government and what other governments sort of give up on to funnel money into defense. That's a bit of a worry for me. I'm concerned that they're going to funnel some money out of, current climate adaptation programming, other types of social programming that are out there. I'm concerned that the focus on industrial defense, logistics, the supply chain, while we're still in a housing crisis, while we're still seeing First Nations communities evacuated because they don't have clean drinking water. Food is expensive in the north. Food is expensive all over Canada. So, I don't want the social issues to get drowned out in this gold rush for defense. And, we have a long history in Canada of gold rushes. Edmonton was a hub for the gold rush in the Yukon, right? There were stampedes that came through Calgary into Edmonton that on horseback, people would stampede up there with, equipment and food and supplies. And again, that was kind of a logistical hub for the gold rush. And look what happened with the gold rush, right? It's, Dawson City used to have one of the most sophisticated communications networks developed in the world during the gold rush. And, you go up there into the north now and their communications and infrastructure is hurting. So, I kind of look at this defense rush as in the similar mind of a gold rush. The industry is going to be looking for a lot of research, knowledge, materials from Western Canada into the north. And again, that extraction of all of this, how is it going to be supported in a sustainable way with this $81 billion? Because my concern, again, is we lose a lot of the research to the States and into China out of this process, into Europe, where it'll be commercialized. I understand in the strategy, it's, build in Canada first, buy in Canada first. And if they can't get it, then they've got to go elsewhere outside of the country. But what if we can't ramp up fast enough? Because again, labor in Canada is expensive. We're in a state right now where our labor is struggling because of, housing crisis, because of food costs. It's really hard to keep people employed full time in Canada right now because there's such a focus on growth and performance. We're burning people out. People are getting burned out from the digital world. They're wanting to go a little bit more analog. They're wanting to be, outside more, doing things with their family. They want to kind of adopt that more, I don't want to call it leisurely life, but they want more out of life than just work and growth and performance. So, is that going to work with this strategy? Considering how quickly we need to ramp up, because there's a housing crisis for a reason. There isn't the labor or the money to build fast enough. And, if we're going to ramp up defense, then where are we going to get the labor and the material and the people to go up north and do all of this when we can't even do it for housing? So maybe that's why Canada is very focused on the technology piece, because then it can be, innovated and done in large centers like Edmonton or Calgary or Vancouver. People can kind of keep the comforts of the city, not have to go live in remote areas that don't have a lot of housing. Like if you look at Yellowknife and Whitehorse right now, it can be really difficult to find a place to live for a decent price. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting, and I think again, the Edmonton Regional Alliance, they've got an opportunity, I hope, to connect in with not only industry, academia, not-for-profits, not only small to medium-sized businesses, because that's a huge focus as well, but other communities outside of what they might call the Edmonton region. And I'm going to kind of stay looped in with the Alliance. I've already attended some of their networking events, and I'll just kind of see where things go, find out a little bit more about how organizations can get involved with this, because my other big concern too is politics. I think, with these kind of big grant funding announcements, you start to have little clusters of people that have very influential political connections, and they seem to get to the top of the heap first for the money, because they have the political capital, meaning they can get inside information, they can get connected into the right person, they can get good information and intel on the application process and things like that. So I know Prairie Can in the West here, they are a good resource for anyone that's looking for that kind of support. Business Development Canada, any of those types of agencies, even I think it's like the Innovation Science Ministry, they can kind of direct you, and the Regional Alliance Hub. You can check out the U of A's website on industrial defense. So yeah, go those routes, look at those things if you're interested. But yeah, let's try and keep this holistic. Let's try and keep it sustainable, and let's try and keep track of it like that. Take care.